viewers, welcome back. This is Politics Today, hapa Science TV. Hapa tunachapa siasa, by the way. With one Nicholas Oyo, our sign language interpreter is Gideon Minor. Now, Nicholas,
yes,
let us talk about our police. You know, there's the issue of brutality, but someone has to talk about them. When they were also, someone has to defend them.
Jonah, the police are human.
There was the 14. They talked of 14. I don't know whether they were dead or injured.
Injured.
And then there was the 14 vehicles that had been vandalized.
Yeah.
And of course, there were images of police bleeding. Yes. What do you do when police also are meted with such forth from the protesters, the rogue protesters? Yeah.
Jonah, the reality of the fact is that police are human beings. Police are part of us, and really we must protect our police. And it's very expensive to train a police officer. So really the question that we are facing in this country is that protesters must also learn to also follow the law and stick to the law. The questions that we face in this country is a scenario where somebody may be taking advantage of that scene to do all the manner of things they want to do. Some protesters are really not protesters. They are just people who are coming to take advantage. The truth is that we must look at this thing as Kenyans. And Kenyans, police are part of us. Kenyans, the protesters are part of us. And so the truth that we must deal with is that our police are getting injured in these things. We've heard about the 14 that are injured. We've had the vehicles that have been burned and destroyed.
Right.
And Jonah, it's a matter of life and death when you're facing a scenario where somebody can throw a stone at you from any corner, by the way. Because you see, even if you come as police, this is not a front that is like an army front where you know the Russians are there or the Ukrainians are this side. No. It is a matter where you are getting yourself in a situation where people can actually come and attack you from whatever kind of corners they can come with. So it's really unfortunate that we are getting into this kind of scenario. I had hoped that we had gone beyond these things. Police were congratulated even by the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights about the elections that happened in 2022.
Right.
They handled it very well, and other issues also. So really we must ask ourselves, do we want to develop a culture of fighting between us and the police? I respect the crown. It's something that you must look at as one of the symbols of safety and security. And so the reality of the fact is that when police also attacked is also unfortunate.
And the president congratulated them. Do you agree with the congratulations?
Yes, but I think even if the congratulations are there because of what, I hope it's not a partisan congratulation. That's the problem that we have. Whatever has happened, we need to deal with the question of people who shot people live using live ammunition must be taken to task, and we must hold them to account. But then at the same time, those policemen who actually achieved things. There was a scene, Jonah, where a policeman was to protesters in Mombasa, I think before this protests, this last protest that people died, and they agreed, they reached an agreement that they are going to escort them to take those petitions to some of the offices. So Jonah, those are things we must comment, and we must look at those, and I hope the media can go down and a special edition for the police and the questions they are facing, so that people don't lose sight of the fact that these are also human beings and they are Kenyans and they're also part of us as a society.
Yeah.
I hope media can take that cue and do something about looking at the good things that happened, even when we have the bad scenario.
There has to be forums. I don't know whether they are called public participation. There's a name for it, where the police come and have some time with the Mwananchi. You know, there are some policemen who would even Christian crusades, you know,
yes,
come and do things.
And John, it is important to underscore those facts that the police has also gone through a lot of reforms. Those things you are saying are because some reforms have happened. And before these scenarios began in 2022, I think police had begun to go towards becoming a professional force. Now we hope that we will go back to that kind of scenario where they are growing their professionalism to a point that they can deal with this question.
Yeah, I think that's why they intended to call them a service instead of a force.
Actually, Jonah, it's a service, but then I think there is a mentality of falsehood in some of the things that happen. But we hope that we can now come down, and that's why we are saying these discussions must be about the entire society, because even the police is a discussion we have to have. The positives of the police are there, and we must make sure that those come out. But then the negatives also must be stopped. So those are the things that we need to deal with in this discourse.
Certainly, someone listening to us, and probably their son. I told you this morning I received a phone call from one of the affected people.
Yes.
And the sorrow is deep.
Rest in peace,
the sorrow is deep. So if they hear this, they don't want to hear anything about there is a positive side to the police. Of course, they are touched.
And John, I started by saying that if I was government, I would also participate in vigils, and even the police, I would also participate in vigils. We have policemen who are good, John. We have faced them before. We have seen scenarios where police have assisted, and these things are there. And we are saying that it is time also to look at those and bring those out so that people understand that the police are not just always those beasts that people are making them to be, even after these things have happened. It is also about also looking at somebody feeling that they are being appreciated and what have you.
Fine. Let's go back to the handshake. We were almost, the pros and cons of that handshake.
Yes,
the tweet. Positive thing you said, that the president is willing to meet Raila. Of course, that is an effort from our good president to actually calm down tensions. But there are pros and there are cons to that handshake.
Exactly, John. And I've said this.
Or rather, let me put it this way: the meeting, because he said in the tweet, one-on-one. I'm ready to meet you one-on-one. If such a thing were to happen.
I don't think, John, a meeting between the president and the former prime minister would really solve a lot of issues, because those issues have to be dealt with from a certain perspective of some form of. There has to be some settlement that are done for you to now bring the principles to now finalize the discussion. So for me, I think what he's proposing is a beginner of basically. You talk about the ice breaking of this kind of scenario. So that's why I'm calling for even that people have now called it handshake. I don't know what we are going to call this thing of me and you shaking hands, Jonah. We need to get another word for it, because now handshake has become politicized.
Which
is very unfortunate.
Definitely.
But for me, it's about the icebreaker. And the icebreaker is about two people saying that, yes, we are telling our supporters that we are Kenyans after all. We are telling our supporters that we don't have a problem with each other, not much. We are telling our supporters that each of us feels that there's something we want to do for this country, and feeling like we are doing it differently, and it's time to maybe close ranks and come together.
Definitely. During the last government, it is from history. Probably that the paranoia is coming. It is from history. Because during the last government, as soon as that handshake happened, you remember what happened to Honorable Wetangula and Honorable Mudavadi? They left. They felt isolated. Right now, they are good friends within Kenya Kwanza. So if such a thing were to happen, would they be?
I would really ask questions about
someone
people
is
who want to
paranoid
leave
about
government.
this.
But Jonah, what you are saying is this, that when the handshake happened between Prime Minister Raila Odinga and the former President Uhuru Kenyatta, it was after some discussions that had been done. The handshake was to seal those discussions.
Oh, it sealed so many things. It sealed so many.
So the sealing of these discussions.
It sealed so many things.
Even careers and what have you. So the reality of the fact is that was a seal. But this I'm saying, Jonah, is an opener. And that's the difference. This is opening the discussions. So people need to understand that if there is a discourse, I don't even want them to shake hands anymore. Let's just basically just say nimekuona hapo. Maybe now it's a political hug, I don't know, but the reality of the fact is that we need the leaders of this country to come down and calm their supporters, so that we can start a discussion that is basically going to take us to the next frontier, John.
But there is a danger here, Nicholas. Let us look at where we need to go moving forward. We need economic recovery.
True.
We need people to come together. There is no other way other than these two people talking. But here there is someone politicizing the name handshake. And as I said, whenever the name handshake is mentioned,
it becomes political.
Paranoid. Totally paranoid on both sides. It's not just one side. Both the Kenya Kwanza and the Azimio, they seem to, and for Azimio, there is also a fear, because in the last government, as soon as the handshake happened, Raila and his group took the failures of Jubilee. It was as if whenever you mention the failures of Jubilee,
it's Raila's Odinga's.
So you can't blame Azimio kingpins, for lack of a better word, to look at this as a political strategy of Ruto to weaken them. Because the moment it happens, you are going to see some Honorable Wetangula and Mudavadi moves, and probably Wetangula and Mudavadi will they also run away from.
Jonah, I think we are overreading this issue, because for me,
yes,
even the scenario of the say lieutenants of both sides,
yes,
between Raila Odinga and former the late President Mwai Kibaki, there was a time when they had to come, the two of them, and basically meet,
right.
And that meant that the lieutenants had to be kept aside, so for them to actually have clarity of discussion. The same also happened with the handshake. It's unfortunate that some of those brought careers into different perspectives. But then I'm saying this, Jonah, that that would not be a bad thing to do as a beginner of discussions between Kenyans. And even if it happens that that kind of engagement is done, the principles must be very clear that this is just a starting of this discourse. We want to start it on a high. And what we want to say is that everybody now needs to relax and go and do your work, and at least be friends in your areas. If you have people who you feel that were from the other side, treat them to a meal. That's what we are saying. And I think, Jonah, when we talk about our constitution, some of the things that we fail to remember is the national values in the constitution, and part of those are about people working together and agreeing that we are different as much as we are, but we want to work together as a country. So, Jonah, I don't see why people should really become fearful about a start to a discussion where the country now decides that we have stopped these things. Let's allow discussions to continue.
It has already been said by 1, 2, 3, 4 people within Kenya Kwanza that Raila needs to be given an office of the leader of opposition. So definitely, after the handshake, one of the outcomes we are going to see probably is the formation of the leader of opposition. And we are going to see one Raila Amolo Odinga here being given, outriders, being given an office. And it has also been said by several people that Raila works best under pressure. So that in the former government, when Raila, was in a handshake, he stayed back and the Mwananchi suffered. So for him to be the agile Raila, working and defending the Mwananchi, he doesn't need the comfort of the leader of an opposition office. A handshake would be detrimental. He will be comfortable.
Yes, I think those discussions about what comes out and what happens is a discussion that maybe we need a long discourse about, and experts need to look at both sides, because there are both positives and negatives about that kind of a scenario. But the truth is that Raila has half of the country's support. Ruto
Right.
has the other half. The difference between them in these elections was 200,000. So really, it is important to understand that to put this country together, those gentlemen must really be involved in something, one way or the other. If it happens that it is a office of the opposition leader, it doesn't have to be occupied by Raila. It might even take time until we do the next election so that it becomes occupied. Not really. But then the question about the things that we are talking about is that this country must talk about the issue about cost of living in this country. That's a major issue. This country must talk about the issue about IBC. As you have said, we have a crisis.
Electoral reforms.
That's an issue
Going
that you have
into
to
the
deal
next
with.
elections with
Yeah.
this IBC may be detrimental.
And this country must talk about constitutionalism. We are seeming to start losing our constitutionalism in this country. So for me, really, whatever happens to Raila Odinga is for him and Azimio and their experts to deal with and to maybe to give us what they think and what they imagine will happen. But then it is important that we reach a point, Jonah, that even a person who loses elections in this country and people who basically control half of the population and they're outside there is something that we must deal with one way or the other. And if it happens to become that is a leader of opposition, so be it. That's not an issue that we... And it doesn't have to be that it is a Raila issue. It must be an issue about this country and the progeny of this country. It has to be something beyond that generational issue.
You are in the civil society, and top on your agenda as the civil society is the cost of living.
Exactly.
Definitely, when these two people meet, obviously they would be talking about the leader of the opposition, electoral reforms. Of course, these are key, but the Mwananchi down there, don't you see the danger of propaganda, especially against Raila, that this has been a strategy? You see, this man has sat and he has talked, and he has not talked about you people. Talked about, there's a word that is normally used, patiana kazi. He has talked about ukubwa and mambo kama, that may be the danger,
And
so we are in a catch-22 here.
And I think his team must come down and understand that some people are not out there because of Raila Odinga said. A lot of people, and even us in the civil society, some of us are there because we are also looking at the question of cost of living and this stuff. There is a promise that was done by the government, the current government, and those promises seem to have been forgotten when government came into place. So people are really complaining about those. And I think for me, if I was government, I would deal with that. And we took the cost of fuel from the VAT charge in fuel from 8% to 16%. Maybe a proposal to put it at 11 or 12 would make a lot of sense to Kenyans. So those are things that I hope can come to the table. Anything else about ukubwa na nini have you should be taken to the back burner. The most important thing for us is to ensure that we don't get into an election that becomes a problem for us again, and we can also bring down the cost of living. Other things for me would be cosmetics, really, for the country.
Yeah, but then, cosmetics as they may be, they are disturbing, because I'm looking at these talks before the talks. You are looking at these two teams. Azimio claims they have brought their team A, and they have been given a team B, but I had someone talk over D. So already there are talks, you are looking down on us by giving us such a team. Already those are messing the talks. You're talking, and yet already you're being looked at as a team B versus a team A. Now I'm taking this beyond the president and the former prime minister talking to these two groups now talking.
Yeah.
There's already the talks before the talks. What should they do? Should they bring in their team A? And who is team A anyway?
And you see, Jonah, you see the folly of the two teams engaging each other, and that's where the problem comes in, because if it is the two teams engaging, it is going to be a confrontation. What we are hoping for is that they can have the wisdom. And this is what I was hoping, that when I say that Raila Odinga and William Ruto, the president, can come and do an opener for the talks, so that to even agree that the teams that I'm going to put on the table are going to be what I feel can represent Kenya Kwanza thinking very well, and at the same time Azimio thinking very well, so that we don't get to a situation where we are even saying that you brought us Team D and Team X. If I was Harambee Stars and I've been given Brazil Team D, I would love that very much. We'd have something to write in the history that we beat Brazil one time. But the issue is that we must allow these discussions to be about Kenyans. I hope that is what William Ruto, when he did the Twitter, was alluding to, and I hoped that Azimio would have reciprocated to actually that even if you're saying we meet, it is about Kenyans and we want to start this to help Kenya.
And then there are some details here. Detention without trial, has it come back?
Yeah, and Jonah, as civil society, we are facing up, and we've said that the constitution is being threatened by some of these things.
I'm saying that because one of the demands was the unconditional release of people who've been arrested during these demonstrations before we can talk.
Yes, Jonah. It's very unfortunate that, and this is again going back to the situation where we face a scenario where you can lock people up and say that I'm still doing investigation. You must go to court for the court to allow you to have that person. And the custody of any person who is in prison, Jonah, must be sanctioned by the court if it's more than 24 hours. At a time when you can go to court. You can't take me on Monday and produce me to court on Friday or Saturday. That's breaking the constitution and breaking the laws. So really, we must calm down in this country, and we must really reach a point that we are saying that we want to take the constitution as a leveler. And that is the most important part of this discourse. And that's why we are saying that Kenya Kwanza and Azimio may give us the talks if they're allowed to just discuss a bipartisan kind of engagement, because some of those things are things that might be done to Azimio people and they will be done to other people next time. So really it is important that that discussion is about this country, is about the constitution, is about cost of living, and is about the economy of this country.
Fine. You're talking about the aspects that need to be talked about here. Electoral reforms needs to be handled. Cost of living needs to be handled. The finance bill needs to be handled. But then we are seeing a situation where, just in case these two people meet, surely, Nicholas, are those the things, do you really think as a civil society, those are the things, being honest, those are the things that will be discussed?
And Jonah, that's why we keep insisting that this discussion cannot be a bipartisan discussion. When it is a bipartisan discussion, it will be about Ukubwa, it will be about what you talked about, the outriders, it will be about carpets and this kind of stuff. We really must get to a discussion where it is about Kenyans first, and that's why we are saying that it has to be expanded to allow the entire country to discuss and to make sure that this is an issue about the Kenyans, and about cost of living, about this taxation, to ensure that Kenyans are feeling they are part of this country, and all that stuff. So really we hope that even when we say that they need to meet, they meet to open the process of this engagement, not to finalize, because if they finalize, we will get into another mess in this country.
Yeah, and it's a confusing thing. Raila meeting Ruto, is it a trap?
It could be, Jonah. It could be a political trap, but sometimes they say that if you're given lemon, make lemonade with it. I think for me, sometimes it's about the statemanhood of some of these leaders. Sometimes you may think that in a marriage, your wife and a husband may have problems all the time, but they go back and get to agree that, okay, maybe those problems are there, we can just meet and see how to deal with them. So for me, I feel if you love this country, some of the things you may need to do is to sacrifice some things, and even if it's a trap, we will see. Time will tell if it's a trap. But then the question has to be, how did you react when you got the opportunity? Because sometimes you may look at it as a trap, but it is about you then. But if you're talking about Kenya, then you always need to come out and say that I'm coming because I'm really concerned about this country.
Could that explain why Raila says Suluhu, the president of Her Excellency Suluhu Hassan, came and waited for them to meet? Could that be the reason why probably no one showed up for the meeting?
It could be,
Yes.
it could not be. That's speculation. But Jonah, really, it's very unfortunate if that is a true. Really, it's very unfortunate to take a president of another country and to ensure to get a situation where they are here and you cannot participate in those discussions. That's very unfortunate. But let's hope that things will change going forward. We seem to have seen a thawing of this, should I call it confrontation, and now it looks like people are beginning to close ranks.
Okay. I don't have to say, these are heavy things, viewer. Nicholas.
Yes, Jonah.
Okay, at least for us we can talk. We can shake hands.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As we
Maybe
don't
maybe
have-
they don't need to shake hands. They can
It's
do
not a
the high
political
five.
strategy
They can
from
do
you.
the high five.
It's not a political strategy.
Yeah, it's not a political
Oh my,
strategy.
very, very confusing things. I don't know what you have to say about some of these things we are sharing here. Keep sharing your views with us here at Science TV. The Azimio protests. By the way, the press are coming tomorrow. Are you seeing more mandamanos next week?
Let's hope,
Just as we wind up,
let's hope things
just as
will
we
change.
wind up.
Let's hope things will change and discussions will begin in earnest.
Perfect.
In earnest. This word in earnest is very important.
Perfect. That's all our time, viewer. See you next week on Politics Today. Hapa tunachapa siasa. Bye-bye.